Hi, it's Maria from Still Dreaming Homestead. I'm glad to be back with you today. We're going to continue reading in our story, The Long Winter by Laura Ingalls Wilder. We're on chapter 16, Fair Weather. Morning was bright and clear, but there was no school. There would be no more school until the train came bringing coal. Outdoors the sun was shining, but frost was still on the window, and the kitchen seemed stale and dull. Carrie gazed out the peephole in the frost while she wiped the breakfast dishes, and drearily Laura sloshed the cooling water in the dishpan. "I want to go somewhere," Carrie said fretfully. "I'm tired of staying in this old kitchen." "We were thankful enough for this warm kitchen yesterday," Mary gently reminded her. "And now we may be thankful that the blizzard is over." "You wouldn't go to school anyway," Laura said crossly. She was ashamed as soon as she heard her words. But Ma said reproachfully, "Laura!" She felt even more cross than before. "When you girls finish your work," Ma went on, covering the well-kneaded bread. Knead is how you work the dough so that you'll have good bread. And setting it before the oven to rise, you may put on your wraps, and Mary too, and I'll go out in the yard for a breath of fresh air." That cheered them. Laura and Carrie worked quickly now, and in a little while they were hurrying into their coats and shawls and hoods, mufflers and mittens. Oh my cat loves me. Laura guided Mary through the lean-to, and they all burst out into the glittering cold. The sun's glare blinded them, and the cold took their breath away. "Throw back your arms and breathe deep, deep," Laura cried. She knew that cold was not so cold if you were not afraid of it. They threw back their arms and breathed in the cold through their cringing noses. It rushed deep into their chests and warmed them all over. Mary laughed aloud. "I can smell the snow," she said. "So fresh and clean. The sky is bright blue and the whole world is sparkling white," Laura told her. "Only the houses stick up out of the snow and spoil it. I wish there weren't any houses." "What a dreadful idea," said Mary. "We'd freeze to death." "I'd build an igloo," Laura declared, "and we'd live like Eskimos." "Ugh! On raw fish?" Mary shuddered. "I wouldn't." The snow crunched and creaked under their feet. It was packed so hard that Laura could not scoop up a handful even to make a snowball. She was telling Carrie how soft the snow used to be in the big woods of Wisconsin when Mary said, "Who's that coming? Sounds like horses." Pa came riding up to the stable. He was standing on a strange sort of sled. It was a low platform made of new boards, oh my, and it was as long as a wagon and twice, this cat's so funny, and twice as wide. It had no tongue, but the long loop of a chain was fastened to a wide apart runners, and the whiffle trees were fastened to the chain. "Where did you get that funny sled, Pa?" Laura asked. "I made it," said Pa, "at the lumber yard." He got his pitchfork from the stable. "It does look funny," he admitted, "but it would hold a whole haystack if the horse could pull it. I don't want to lose any time getting hay here to feed the stock." Laura wanted to ask him if he had any news on the train, but the question would remind Carrie that there was no more coal or kerosene and no meat until the train could come. She didn't want to worry Carrie. They were all so brisk and cheery in the bright weather, and the sunny weather lasted. And if the sunny weather lasted for a while, the train would come, and there would be nothing to worry about. While she was thinking this, Pa stepped into the low big sled. "Tell your Ma they've brought a snowplow and a full work train out from the east and put them to work at the Tracy cut, Laura," he said. "A few days of this fine weather and they'll have that train running all right." "Yes, Pa, I'll tell her," Laura said thankfully, and Pa drove away, around the street corner and out along Main Street towards the homestead. Carrie sighed a long sigh and cried, "Let's tell her right away." From the way she said it, Laura knew that Carrie had been wanting to ask Pa about the train too. "My, what rosy cheeks," Ma said when they went into the dusky, warm kitchen. The cold, fresh air shook out of their wraps while they took them off. The heat from the stove made their cold fingers tingle pleasantly, and Ma was glad to hear about the work train and the snowplow. "This good weather will likely last for some time now. We've had so many storms," Ma said. The frost was melting on the window and freezing into sheets of ice over the cold glass. With little trouble, Laura pried it off and wiped the panes dry. She settled herself in the bright daylight and knitted her lace, looking out now and then at the sunshine on the snow. There was not a cloud in the sky, and no reason to worry about Pa, though he did not come back as soon as they expected. At 10 o'clock, he still hadn't come. At 11, there was no sign of him. It was only 2 miles to the homestead and back, and half an hour should load the sleigh with hay. "I wonder what's keeping Pa," Mary said finally. "Likely he's found something to do with the claim," Ma said. She came to the window then and looked at the northwestern sky. There was no cloud in it. "There's no cause to worry," Ma went on. "It may be the storms have done the damage to the shanty and it needs mended." At noon, the Saturday baking of bread was out of the oven, 3 crusty, golden hot loaves, and the boiled potatoes were steaming dry, and the tea was brewed, and Pa still had not returned. Ouch! It bit me. They were all sure that something had happened to him, though no one said so, and no one could think what it might be. The steady old horse would surely not run away. Laura thought of claim jumpers. Pa had no gun if claim jumpers were in the deserted shanty, but claim jumpers could not have come through this blizzard. There were no bears or panthers or wolves or Indians. There was no river to cross. What could happen to hinder or hurt a man driving gentle horses in good weather only a mile in a sled over the snow to the homestead and the same way back again with a load of hay? Then Pa came driving around the corner of 2nd Street by the window. Laura saw him going by snowy on the mound of snowy hay that hid the sled and seemed to be dragging it on the snow. He stopped at the stable, unhitched the horses, and put them into their stalls, and then he came stamping into the lean-to. Laura and Maud put the dinner on the table. "By George, that dinner looks good," said Pa. "I could eat a bear raw without salt." Laura poured hot water from the tea kettle into the wash basin for him. Ma said gently, "Whatever kept you so long, Charles?" "Grass," said Pa. He buried his face in his hands full of soapy water, and Laura and Ma looked at each other in amazement. What did Pa mean? In a minute he reached out for the roller towel and went on. "That confounded grass under the snow. You can't follow the road," Pa went on, wiping his hands. "There's nothing to go by. No fences or trees, As soon as you get out of town, there's nothing but snowdrifts in every direction. Even the lake's covered up. The drifts are packed hard by the wind and frozen, so the sled slides right over them, and you'll think you could be in a beeline to wherever you want to go. Well, first thing you know, the team went down to their chins through that hard snow, so they weighed enough they just crashed right through it. I hit the slough, and the snow looks as hard there as anywhere, but underneath it's just grass. The slough grass holds up the crust of snow on nothing but grass stems and air. As soon as the horses get onto it, they go down. I spent this whole morning wrestling with that dumb horse, Sam. Charles, Ma said. Carolyn, Pa answered, it's enough to make a saint swear. David was all right. He's got horse sense. But Sam went plumb crazy. There those two horses are, down to their backs in the snow, and every try they make to get out only makes the hole bigger. If they drag the sled down into it, I'll never get it out. So I unhitch the sled. Then I try to get the team up onto hard ground again. And there Sam does some crazy wild plunging and snorting and jumping and wallowing all the time deeper in that confounded snow. Must have been a job, Ma agreed. He was threshing around so I was afraid he'd hurt David, said Pa. So I got down into it and unhitched them from each other. I held onto Sam and I trampled the snow down as well as I could, trying to make a hard enough path for them to walk on up to the top of the drifts. But he'd rear and plunge and break it down till I tell you it'd wear out any man's patience. Whatever did you do, Charles? Ma asked. Oh, I finally got him out, Pa said. David followed me as gentle as a lamb, stepping carefully and coming right up. So I hitched him to the sled and he dragged it around to the hole. But I had to hang on to Sam all the time. There was nothing to tie him to. Then I hitched them both together again and started on. We went about 100 feet and down they went again. Mercy, Ma exclaimed. That kind of means, oh my. So that's the way it was, said Pa. The whole morning. Took me the whole half a day to get a couple of miles and get back with one load of hay. And I'm tireder than if I had done a whole day's work. I'm going to drive David single this afternoon. He can't haul such a big load, but it'll be easier on both of us. He ate dinner in a hurry and hurried out to hitch David to the sled alone this time. Now they knew that Pa was what he was doing, they weren't so worried. But they were sorry for David falling through the deceitful snowdrifts and for Pa unhitching and helping the horse out and hitching him to the sled again. Still, the whole afternoon was sunny without a cloud in the sky, and before dark, Pa had hauled 2 small loads of hay. David follows me like a dog, Pa told him at supper. When he breaks through the snow, he stands still till I can trample a solid path up. Then he follows me up out of the hole as carefully as if he understood all about it, and I bet he does. Tomorrow I'm going to hitch him onto the sleigh by a long rope, so I won't have to unhitch him when he falls in. I'll only have to help him out, and then on the long rope he can haul the sled around the hole. After supper, Pa went to Fuller's Hardware to buy the rope. He came back with news. The work train with the snowplow had gotten halfway through the Tracy cut that day. It takes longer this time to get through, he said, because every time they cleared the tracks, they threw the snow up on both sides, making the cut much deeper. But Woodworth at the depot says likely they'll get the train through by day after tomorrow. Oh, that's good news, Ma said. I'll be thankful to have some meat again. And that's not all, Pa went on. We're going to get mail, train or no train. They're sending it through by team. And Gilbert, the mail carrier, is leaving for Preston in the morning. He's making a sled now, so if you want to send a letter, you can. There is a letter I've been writing to the folks in Wisconsin, Ma said. I wasn't intending to finish it so soon, but perhaps I will. So she brought the letter to the table under the lamp, and after she'd thawed the ink bottle, wow, the ink was frozen in their house, they all sat around the table thinking of last things to say, while Ma wrote them down with her little red pen and her mother of pearl handle shaped like a feather. With her neat, clear writing, filled the paper, and she turned it over and filled it crosswise. On the other side of the paper, she did the same thing so that every inch of paper held all the words it could possibly hold. Carrie had only been a baby in Wisconsin. Got a cat hair. She did not remember the aunts and uncles and the cousins. Alice and Ella, Peter and Grace had never seen them, but Laura and Mary remembered them perfectly. Tell them I still have my old doll, Charlotte, said Laura, and I wish I had one of Black Susan's great-great-great-grandkittens. Descendants takes up less space, said Ma. I'm afraid this letter will be overweight. He had to pay more, of course. Tell them there isn't a cat in the whole country, said Pa. I wish to goodness there was, said Ma. We need one for mice. Tell them we wish they could come and spend Christmas with us like they did in the big woods, said Mary. As they did, Mary, said Ma. My goodness, Laura exclaimed. When is Christmas? I've forgotten all about it. It's almost here. Grace bounced on Mary's lap and cried, When is Christmas? When is Santa coming? Mary and Carrie told her all about Santa Claus. Now Mary did not know what to say to her, and neither did Santa, but Carrie spoke up. Maybe Santa Claus can't get here this winter, Grace, on account of the storms and the snow. Carrie said, You see, even the train can't. Santa Claus comes on a sled, Grace said anxiously, looking at them with wide eyes. He can come, can't he, Pa? Can't he, Ma? Of course he can, Grace, said Ma. Then Laura said stoutly, Santa Claus could come anywhere. Maybe he'll bring us the train, said Pa. In the morning he took the letter to the post office, and there he saw Mr. Gilbert putting the mail bags onto the sled, and he drove by. Well wrapped in buffalo robes, he had 12 miles to go to Preston. He'll meet another team there with mail from the east and bring it back, Pa explained to Ma. He ought to get back tonight, if he doesn't have too much trouble crossing the slough. He has good weather for the trip, Ma said. I'd better take advantage of it myself, said Pa. He went out to harness David to the sled by the long rope. He hauled one load of hay that morning. At noon, while they sat at the table, the light darkened and the wind began to howl. Here she comes, Pa said. I hope Gilbert made it safe to Preston. Wow, they got hit again. I hope that he got there safe too. Well, it's Maria from Still Dreaming Homestead. I want to pray blessings on you and on yours in your household, in the day and also in the night. And whatever you do, keep dreaming. Good night. God bless you.